You probably think the kiwi fruit comes from New Zealand. I mean, it's named after their national bird. People from New Zealand are literally called Kiwis, and it's their biggest agricultural export that doesn't involve sheep. But you've been living a lie, and the truth involves Cold War politics, international tax dodging, and a fruit that originally tasted like a furry lemon. We associate kiwis with New Zealand so much that we don't even question it. It's a fuzzy brown ball of green mush that tastes great in a fruit salad, provided you don't eat the hairy skin, unless you're a psychopath, in which case, enjoy your mouthful of carpet. But if you went back in time to New Zealand just a little over 100 years ago and asked for a kiwi fruit, they'd hand you a roasted endangered bird. Which, honestly, is a terrible addition to a fruit salad. The fruit we know and love today originally comes from the Yangtze River Valley in China. Over there, for hundreds of years, it was called yangdao, which translates roughly to strawberry peach. It was also sometimes called macaque peach because local monkeys absolutely loved to eat them. Which makes sense, because back then, the fruit was basically monkey food. It wasn't the sweet, commercially viable green circle we know today. It was tart, incredibly tough, and generally not something you'd build a multi-billion-dollar global export empire around. It was essentially the medieval peasant version of modern fruit. Enter Mary Isabel Fraser. In 1904, this New Zealand school principal was visiting mission schools in China. She tasted the monkey fruit, thought, hey, this is slightly better than terrible, and brought some seeds back to New Zealand. A local horticulturist named Alexander Allison planted them, and by 1910, New Zealand had its first official harvest of what they decided to call the Chinese gooseberry. Why Chinese gooseberry? Because it was from China, and it tasted vaguely like a gooseberry. Creative naming wasn't exactly their strong suit back then. It's like if we called bananas Ecuadorian yellow slugs. Now, before we get to the massive international crisis this caused, I need to bring up something incredibly important. This YouTube channel is almost dead. Literally on life support. So, I give you 5 seconds to subscribe to this channel. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Your minimal physical effort has delayed our channel's inevitable demise by at least 3 days. Back to the Chinese gooseberry. For a few decades, New Zealanders happily ate their fuzzy monkey fruit. But in the 1950s, they realized they were growing way too many of them, largely because the local climate was perfect for it. They needed a new market, so they decided to export them to the United States. There was just one massive, geopolitical problem. The 1950s was the absolute height of the Cold War. The US and China were not exactly exchanging friendship bracelets. Trying to sell 1950s Americans a strange, hairy fruit explicitly branded as Chinese was like trying to sell them a radioactive communist spy camera. It was a marketing disaster. Supermarkets refused to stock them, and the fruit was essentially dead on arrival. But wait, it gets worse. Plus, there was another issue, the word gooseberry. The US Customs Department had incredibly strict import laws, and they heavily taxed berries. If New Zealand shipped Chinese gooseberries, they'd be hit with a massive tariff for importing berries. Now, scientifically speaking, the kiwi fruit actually is a berry. But nobody cares about botany when profit margins are on the line. They needed a rebrand, and they needed it fast. First, in 1958, the export company tried calling it a melonette. Because, you know, it looks like a tiny melon if you squint and also have no idea what a melon looks like. It seemed like a solid, non-communist name. But then they checked the American tax code again. As it turns out, US Customs slapped incredibly high tariffs on melons, too. So melonette would still bankrupt them at the border. Finally, in 1959, the exporters had a crisis meeting. They needed a name that wasn't a berry, wasn't a melon, wasn't Chinese, and sounded exotic but politically friendly. They looked at the fruit sitting on the table. It was small, round, brown, and incredibly fuzzy. Then, they thought about their national bird, the kiwi. The kiwi bird was also small, round, brown, and incredibly fuzzy. Boom! The kiwi fruit was born. It was the single greatest pivot in agricultural history. It was the perfect marketing spin. Calling it a kiwi fruit instantly associated the product with a friendly, US-allied nation. It completely dodged the aggressive berry and melon taxes because, as far as US customs was concerned, a kiwi fruit was an entirely unclassified, untaxable new thing. And it made the fruit sound wonderfully exotic to American consumers who loved the idea of tropical South Pacific islands. The rebrand worked flawlessly. By the 1970s, the newly christened kiwi fruit was a massive, runaway success in America, becoming a status symbol at every fancy dinner party and high-end fruit tart. New Zealand went on to selectively breed the fruit to be sweeter, larger, and more delicious, creating the modern version we eat today. Today, New Zealand is one of the world's top producers of the fruit, though in a hilarious twist of fate, China eventually realized what a goldmine they had let slip away. They started massively cultivating the improved fruit, and today, China has taken back the crown and grows more kiwi fruit than anyone else in the world. So the next time you eat a kiwi fruit, just remember you're actually eating a communist monkey peach disguised as a flightless bird to dodge American taxes.